to Awaken Your Health. I am Julie Murphy, and I have started this awakening series after I wrote my book called Awaken Your Wealth, because the wealth is just the result of everything else. So it's about aligning with your health, your wealth, your relationships, your spirit, and build your life from the inside out. So my buddy Nam,
we're all together.
Tell them about you, my friend.
Yes, and I am 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, the spiritual bodybuilder, and I am here to talk about the other side of things. So we have Julie, which is the financial expert, but we both work with energy, right? And at the end of the day, it is all about the energy. And we're going to be talking about soul mapping today. So, Julie, what is soul mapping?
What is soul mapping? Well, so my take on soul mapping is the fact that my belief is that your soul has already chosen what your life plan is when you came into this world.
Yep.
And any time that you don't accept whatever arises in your life, you choose to suffer.
Ooh, man,
so
that's a
arises, if you don't accept it, you suffer.
I have to agree with you.
Like, I had a really hard time accepting the fact that I was gonna wind up divorced with 4 kids, and for me, swallowing that was like, every time I didn't accept that, I suffered. And so now that I am surrendering in an acceptance of that, especially because, like, divorced with 4 kids, and if you weren't on the same page married, you're not gonna necessarily be on the same page divorced. And trying to find that place, it's like, well, I have to accept the fact that we're not on the same page, and then I don't suffer.
And you know what's interesting? Okay. Right. What's interesting, like, now that you're saying it like that, I've noticed that whenever I have, like, clung on to an idea or a belief within myself, like when I was in the military, you know, I believed that I was going to be a lifer, that I was going to be in the military, then that was my, you know, and things change. And then, you know, when you're a lot of morals and ethics and, like, you know, these values and boundaries that we have, when they shift, which ultimately they always do. And astrology backs this up, because astrology, like, your natal chart is essentially your blueprints for when you came into this existence of what your soul agreed to experience. Right? So as we go through these energies, sometimes you can think, like, what, all this, like, why did my significant other die? Or why did all these bad things happen to me? Or why did all these bad things happen in the world? And then you want to say that's my fault, that I brought this upon myself?
Oh, I've had multiple people say that to me, but we have to understand that when we create these suffering cycles, so if we don't accept what arises, what we do is we create these suffering cycles, and then those suffering cycles actually is what creates illness in your physical body.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And this is what it all has to do with, from a health perspective, of why we're here on Awakening Your Health, kind of bringing in energy and soul mapping and divine plan, whatever you want to call it. You know, so much of this is semantics. So anyone who's sitting here going, well, I call it this and I call it that, going, you know what, call it whatever the hell you want. It's still the same thing.
Right. Like, in our limited minds, we have to, you know, put it in a box to understand it, right? Like, up in this time frame that we're living in, the age of Pisces, it's been about duality, right? In order to grow, you have to suffer, right? Thank God that we are moving through that, and eventually it won't be like that anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that we're learning that right now, because everything is speeding up so fast. It changed, because look, when things change, usually when something changes, there's a part of that change that we don't want to accept, right? We have a comfort. We have something that we want to stay the same.
Right.
And usually that part will leave, and then we that attachment, we cling onto it, and energetically and emotionally, and then that is what causes suffering. So really, especially right now, like with everything going on, the energy right now is so intense.
Right.
It's not letting us attach to anything. It's like, too bad, let it go.
Right. Well, you have to let it go. And because, you know, I'm really clear that on my health journey, that if I didn't let go and I didn't surrender to whatever came up and arose, I mean, I was getting warning signs of creating breast cancer back in 2016. Then in 17, I was getting warning signs of autoimmune disease developing. And then as I started to shift from a health perspective, and even here after 2 years after my divorce is over, you know, I had warning signs that there's issues, you know, and I've watched every woman who went through a divorce that was not necessarily an easy process, where it came up in the second chakra area, whether it was ovarian cancer or uterine cancer, something of that nature. And every client, now not all of them have come into cancer, their cells haven't developed to that state, but like I just had my 2 year after my divorce, and my OB's like, you have abnormal cells. I'm like, yeah, I know, this is the process, this is what happens health wise.
Right.
And, you know, because of all the work I've done and accepting what's been arising in my world, they're just abnormal cells. And because it's all physiologically moving out of my cellular structure, and it's just not developed into a disease, which means that I'm continuing to raise my vibration and vitality.
Yeah, get it. Exactly. And, you know, I find I think that there's these periods of time in life where we go through and right now we're going through like a sort of Oreo cookie sandwich full of them, of layers of energies that are purging out a lot of this stuff, because, you know, it's our body does like to hold on to stuff. And
well, the physical place is the last place for it to leave.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So learning how to interact with these emotions. I just talked to a woman today where she's had her entire colon and half of her small intestine removed throughout her lifetime because, you know, like she had cancer cells growing and whatnot. And that's really, I mean, like understanding the human body like I do, I'm like, well, what about like the enzymes, like the cellular conversions? Like, how do you take a shit? You know what I mean? Like how does all that work now? Like, because you're missing, you know, critical aspect, but the body is incredibly resilient. It'll keep going, and it'll keep working and modifying itself to accompany, so that, you know, like depending on what level of suffering we choose to experience. And I think that's a big thing that we have to understand, is that yes, when we're not living in this victim mentality, like you were saying earlier, we take responsibility and realize that we chose to experience this.
Yes.
And when
and we seem to have talked a little bit about cancer. So I just want to mention that, you know, back years ago when I did a lot of work with Deepak Chopra, I remember him saying that a cancer cell develops because that cell has lost its sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And when I wrote my first book, The Emotion Behind Money, I realized that 50% of my male clients between 55 and 65 years old all developed cancer around their hip area, prostate, colon. And I was like, how did all these guys lose their sense of purpose? Like, and all of them, 100% of them lost their job, not by their choice. So it really started to get me to understand that, you know, if you are in a state where cancer is developing or something else is going on, you have to look at what emotionally you are processing and where you're not plugging into your life from a place of passion and purpose, because then disease develops in your body. And again, that goes back to the suffering cycles of what's your soul map? Because what happens is that if this is your soul map right here, and you've had free will and free choice, and you've veered off from that soul map, that the bigger the life midlife crisis is to get you back in alignment with your soul. And you don't have to call that crisis in any longer to shift your life. You don't. You can choose that. And I think right now we have a lot of people who are, you know, anything that is unresolved within ourselves these days is coming up to be healed, because everything outside of yourself is so obnoxious right now, from political views to coronavirus pandemics to economic disaster stuff. Like, it's becoming so much that you're being forced to go inside
Yeah.
So you're being forced to build your life from the inside out, as opposed to the keep up with the Joneses of what's going on and how do I keep up with them, even though it's not in alignment with your own heart and soul.
Right, right. And that awareness is coming into everyone, whether they're consciously aware of it or not, because the collective vibration is rising. We're shifting, we're changing. And so like you said, with all this change going on, and let me tell you, this next couple months, with the astrology going on, this is like the last quarter mile. This is like the last final purge. We're coming to a threshold. December 21st, 2020 is a threshold. Okay.
Tell me more.
What's that?
Tell me more.
Yeah. So right now we have the darkness is getting louder and louder and louder, right? All this stuff is coming out. It's looking really nasty on the outside. Okay. But that's what has to happen. It has to come up to purge. On December 21st, there's going to be a shift. Now it's going to be a slight shift, because it's more like right now it's 49.51.
Right.
Okay. It's going to flip to 49.51 on the other side, so that now this light energy is going to gain an exponential amount of strength. So what does that mean? It means that this ascension process is going to continue to speed up, and people's values, morals, ethics, the way they approach life, what they desire, what they like, their motives for doing what they do are going to change. So therefore, things like the stock market, okay, that's going to change. Actually, every industry in the world is in a massive and deep fundamental shift. But really, everybody's going to start acting and processing things and information differently, because now they're going to start to question themselves if they're coming from a place of greed or power, being power hungry, or being vindictive or anything like that. That's going to bite them in the ass,
right?
Big time, right? And that karmic energy is coming back like immediately. So if you haven't noticed, like if you're doing something that is of not exactly authentic and true and coming from the heart, people are just getting hit. Bam. Okay, well, shit. I didn't know that was going to happen, right? And some people will take that position like, why is this happening to me? Oh, this sucks. No, I got to go deeper into it. That's not what you want to do, right?
Yeah.
You want to come back and be like, okay, I'm sorry. Like I fucked up. Just like humble yourself. This is humility.
Right.
I think a lot of people are being humbled right now. I know I am, big time. But humility is a good thing. When you embrace it, that humility is vulnerability, essentially, right?
Totally.
And vulnerability is not a comfortable energy to feel. That's that chirotic energy. And we all have chiron energy, somewhere in our chart. And
can you explain more of what that energy is?
Yeah, so the chiron energy is the wounded healer within us all, right? It's that part of us that we feel like is broken or stuck or not.
So does that correlate to like the wounded child when we're younger?
Yeah, 100%. So when we're
a lot of psychotherapists use that.
What's that?
A lot of psychotherapists.
A lot of psychopaths use that.
Yeah, did I really
probably
say
do.
that?
Yeah, that's okay. It happens.
No, it's been a long Monday.
Yeah, right. What a case of the Mondays. So yeah, so when we're little and we're completely vulnerable, right? Like we're taught by our environment, right? So if something traumatizes us, whether intentional or not, if we feel traumatized, then a part of our spirit, a part of our soul breaks apart. It almost like dissociates, right? Right. So when that happens, it's called soul fragmentation. Our soul fragments, and it goes away to keep itself safe. It like locks itself.
Well, that's when we go into survival mode.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Now, everyone to some extent has that little bit. Some people integrate it naturally. Some people do it in more difficult ways. Right. Right. So then, as we get older, and our soul wants to reintegrate itself to itself. The soul pieces try to come back via the environment, right? It's like a subconscious magnet that keeps.
Well, that's where you get life experiences that try to force that to come out.
Exactly. So this is where the suffering comes into play, okay?
Right.
And astrologically speaking, we create this Saturnian control dynamic, right? Saturn represents this 3D reality, and Saturn represents our control, our relationship to time and space, you know, like constriction rules, like the structure of our reality. Chiron is the bridge to our higher dimensional awareness. Okay, the higher dimensional awareness essentially is Kundalini energy. Kundalini is our sexual and creative energy, right? So in order to access that, all right, we have to let go of the control dynamic of the Saturnian energy, these belief systems and behavior patterns we've put in place that have worked up until now to get us where we want to go, but we end up hitting a glass ceiling, right? And humanity right now is smushed up against this glass ceiling, like, right? So we're needing to surrender that energy to access the Kundalini aspect, to release and open up this higher vibrational energy. And that's what's happening.
So tell me, from a health and body perspective, like, how does this all correlate and drive into our physical bodies? Because I know that clearly a pandemic is a health crisis, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, collectively, on some level, we've going back to soul mapping, that we have collectively called this in on some level,
right,
to shift humanity, which we can see all the infrastructure shifting happening.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And whether you agree with this side or that side or the other side doesn't matter. It's about really that it's that we're trying to get to the next place collectively.
Right.
And how, from a physical body perspective, can people navigate through this the best?
Okay, so I want you to think about, like, energetically first. Like, you know, that experiment that some teachers have done where they have a container and they fill it with balls, right? And then, like, and they fill it to the top, it's full. And then they fill it with sand, right?
Right.
And
is
then
it
you think
full? Yes. Nope, it's not.
Put right. And then you can fill it with water.
Yep.
Right. So now so we're filled with the balls and the sand and the water and the lid's on tight. That's the Saturnian energy, right? This place that we're going to, it doesn't have a fucking container.
So it's just completely expansive.
It's completely expansive. So what's happening is all this stuff.
But our physical bodies are contained.
Yes, right? They are.
Right.
But so think of it in terms of this Kundalini energy, right? As we activate this Kundalini energy, the container is the space, right? And as we activate our DNA more, which is happening, that's why this is so intense. As we activate our DNA, it makes us realize or question this container that we're in. Like, why are we in here? There's got to be more to life than this, right? So this container is essentially being blown wide open right now. And everything is going anywhere. And at first, everything is like, I don't know what to do. Where are we? Oh, wait, I can fly. So some people are choosing to fly. Some people are saying, get me back inside that freaking jar.
Yeah,
I feel so uncomfortable.
That, like, we're fighting for our limitations.
Yes, exactly.
Back in the jar, it's like, no, you can't go and sit on the same bar stool you used to sit on because you're different now.
Exactly. Now, take this analogy and replace it with inflammation in the body. Okay? Inflammation is happening in the body from these different areas. Emotions activate certain hormones.
Inflammation in the body is what exacerbates disease.
Yes. It's the fundamental force that exacerbates disease. Okay? So, and it shifts the pH in the body, right? So we are being bombarded with toxins already, okay? And now and emotions are probably the number one thing that influence hormonal secretions. So as we suppress this stuff more and more and more, right? Our body gets more and more stuck in this sympathetic dominant state by secreting hormones to reinforce the reaction process to everything. So it seems like it's not conscious, it's automatic. This is just who we are, right? But the problem with that is that that's not true. But if we believe it's true, then we make it true. So So we get stuck in this place, and the inflammation just starts building on itself over on layer upon layer upon layer until, like you said, the cells, they lose their function because now they're just reacting to getting bombarded. You're basically beating the crap out of yourself. You're killing yourself.
Yeah.
By allowing these emotions and these processes to stay in this same in the same container that they are naturally designed to grow out of.
And, you know, I always like to tell people that they now can measure the megahertz of the vibration of diseases. And I know that may sound really esoterical to a lot of people.
No, not at all.
But, well, not to you.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, what are you smoking, Joel? You know, but what we need to know is that there's rife frequencies that can help. You know, I find it extremely fascinating that right as this scientist, last name Rife, R-I-F-E, was out doing research, so was all the pharmaceutical stuff. And for whatever reason, the FDA stuff is the stuff that expanded and grew, and the Rife stuff got buried. And there's lots of theories as to why that occurred, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to get into any of that stuff.
Right.
But the Rife stuff is starting to now come up. And then you've got like Dr. Joe Dispenza, who talks about the fact that, you know, breaking the habit of being yourself and creating your whole new mind in his book, where he talks about that these emotions that you're talking about have different megahertz and different frequencies. And diseases, like they know that, you know, diabetes is at 52 megahertz and cancer is at 44 megahertz. Like, so in right frequencies, if you listen to tones on these frequencies, it can actually kill the cells in your body that actually are the diseased cells.
True.
And right. And so we have to understand that these emotions are what's creating then those megahertz on vibration. So right now, as an example, if you're operating in the world with a ton of fear, which there's tons of it out there.
A lot of it out there, yeah.
You're exasperating the disease then in your body because of that. And I get that this might feel a little far stretched for people, but this is where like why like meditation and yoga and things of that nature, or eating vegetables and alkaline foods, like all of this leads to counteracting those emotions that create a healthy body. Like it's how it all pulls together.
Exactly. Now, those vibrational techniques will not work if we don't believe it'll work.
Right.
The belief is
the mind is
the gateway or the block. Right.
Yep.
So that is a big thing that's shifting right now with the South Node and Sagittarius. Sagittarius essentially represents rules the ninth house, which represents belief systems. Okay. So, and there's a lot of, we're seeing all these opposing belief systems going on, all this manipulation and conditioning going on to try to keep these belief systems from expanding. Because what's going to happen if 8 billion people expand their consciousness? Then the world is going to completely shift and change, and the people with, you know, lots of power are not going to have it anymore. So there's a redistribution of energy going on.
Well, there's a redistribution of energy, whether it's financial energy,
all over the place,
energy, like whatever aspect you want to, it's redistributing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So, so this is where like the universe is essentially making these course corrections, right? And that's why like things are just looking so crazy, because there's a lot of people that want to get back into that container. And there's a lot of other people that are saying, fuck the container, let's go explore. Yeah. And that's essentially like the divide. That's where, and there's a massive level of dissonance in there, right? Right. Eventually we will find our way back to a common center point, but I feel like things are going to have to get pretty nasty before that happens, unfortunately.
Well, let's not be doomer gloomer.
Okay.
Like,
you're right.
I had somebody say to me the other day, where they said, it feels like it's all falling apart, Julie, but it's actually all falling together.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And I really want to, I tend to be the eternal optimist.
Hmm.
Like I can't really plug. I'm having a really tough time plugging into anyone or anything that is like poo-pooing anything these days. Like I got ripped into the other day and I just sat there and watched this person trigger. They emotionally triggered and they were lashing out at me. And I just sat there and I go, I was able to actually stay in a state of observance so that it didn't physically affect me, that I just let them be in their moment because they're triggered by all the stuff going on, in the injustices of the world. And I'm like going, it's not that I don't care. That's not it whatsoever. It's just about the fact that I'm no longer willing to allow it to physically affect my health and well-being.
And that's what it's all about, that boundary. And I'm not trying to be a doom and gloomer.
No, I know.
I'm kind of like, all right, well, let's prepare for the worst, hope for the best.
Yeah.
You want to be ready for it.
What do you mean by that? What do you be ready for? Like when I think of it, like me staying in the state of observer and doing the health stuff, like making sure that I'm working out, making sure that if we have a second pandemic thing, that I got the proper exercise stuff this time in my home, like I'm just prepared that if it happens, that I'm still positioned to be lucky to be the best version of myself regardless.
Absolutely. I mean, like, say if there's like a food crisis or something, making sure that you have an ample amount of food, in reserves just in case, making sure that you have protection for yourself, making sure that, like, heaven forbid, if anything is to happen, you are ready for it and you're gonna, you have like a plan B just in case.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Like there is a big part of me that can't even really plug into like, because I guess it's I have this knowing that it's all going to be fine regardless. And I don't know, it's interesting. I'm one of 12 children.
Mm-hmm.
And the shit hit the fan like that all the time in my childhood.
Oh, yeah.
Like where it was like you didn't have enough food, you didn't know where the next meal was going to come from. And as this stuff unpacked, I just am super interested in the fact that wow, it was almost like my childhood prepared me to be in the state of neutrality for what's going on right now, because I don't go there like most people are of being prepared to protect yourself, and because everything always turned out regardless of whether I was prepared or not, because there were all kinds of surprises growing up and it still all turned out okay.
True,
it's like, can you really ever truly prepare for what it is that you don't know that you're coming? Or is it just the mind and the ego that's really actually just trying to create that, to create more polarity and duality, which can then physically affect you? I don't know the right answer.
Here's what I think. I think that through the conditioning throughout our lives, what we learn, like how you grew up, that prepared you in this certain way. Sure. Through my experiences in my life, this has prepared me through this kind of way. And we're all going to have a part to play in this
good point.
Transforming of this new world, right?
That's a really great point.
Yeah. So it's not good or bad. It's just, it's wherever we're at, like our soul is essentially preparing us in the way that, because it knows, like we all know, massive change is coming. I believe that we're going to end up having like commune type, like communities where, say there's a community of like 200 people, right? We're going to have like a local doctor, a local lawyer, a local chef, a local like farmers, like local people that all have their passion in doing what they do. And we will barter more, because this whole like, monetary system is about to go through a significant shift. I believe so. Do you, I mean, that's more your territory, but from what I'm seeing, like they're trying to make it a cashless society.
Yeah, but again, I can't, I don't think it's going to be as extreme as some people think that it's going to be. Is it going to shift and is it going to change? There's no doubt, the cashless society stuff was happening way before all this stuff happened. I
Okay.
remember being at an industry meeting probably 20 years ago, and there was a guest speaker that they brought on that was considered a futurist. And they talked about how there was this thing going to be the point system that was going to replace currency on some level. And you look at airline miles and points you
Oh
get for
yeah.
credit card. Like, this was before it happened, before it's like, I mean, I know I just used a bunch of points. I just bought a bunch of clothes for my kids at the Gap the other day, and I had $450 worth of stuff, and I bought them all their stuff, and I didn't pay one physical American dollar for it.
Nice.
And it's a form of currency, but it's not like a gloomy, like scary thing that it's shifting.
No,
Like,
no.
I just think it's going to be different. We have to be open to adapt to change, because when we don't adapt, that's when
Right.
it affects your physical health.
Right. Yeah.
Because you're struggling through that shift and change. It's like you say, like, get busy living or get busy dying.
Right. And I think going into it, in that, like, the way that you go into these different aspects of this change will determine, like, a lot about, like, how it shows up, right? Like, if you're fear-based, then
Right.
you're gonna generate more shit to make you more fear-based. So if
Right.
you're going into it with love, like, even if it's like, like you're preparing for something bad to happen, but if you go into it with love and, openness and surrender, then it's going to be great, because you know that ultimately it's for your highest and best good. So I did get a question here about traveling right now. And so I know you've been doing a lot of traveling. So how's travel been for you?
Not a problem. Having a lot of fun.
Okay. Here we go.
Well, it's, again, I'm not tapping into the fear around all the travel.
Right.
So I'm a person who likes the next new adventure. And so I do, and I go, and I go on those adventures. I'm following whatever really makes me giggle, and I'm being smart about it, right? I'm making sure that I'm, whatever state I'm in, I abide by whatever they got going on at that time, of depending on where they're at in their process. And I'm just not afraid. I
think that's sort of like the fundamental message or point of all this is whatever's going on in the world, don't be afraid. Don't let it.
Well, and going back to our title for tonight is soul mapping, like follow your soul map. Like, if I'm being called to get on an airplane and go to Sedona, because I understand that to be a strong energy base for me, it recharges my batteries hiking in those mountains, then guess what? I'm getting on a plane and I'm going to Sedona. Like, I hear you. and that's why I just recently did this road trip, that went to the Badlands, which is, it's funny. I had an aunt who worked with the Native Americans there, and I didn't realize when I was asked to go to the Badlands, that's exactly where my aunt lived. Like, literally on the reservation of the Badlands is where my aunt lived and died when she was in her late 20s.
Oh, wow.
And I got all this guidance when I was there, tapping into her energy and stuff, like, and that was the beginning of the trip. And it was like, but my soul guided me that, yep, I'm supposed to go. Yep, I'm supposed to. It was really weird how it all came into being. And then, then found myself, we wound up at Old Faithful in Yellowstone. And then I climbed Mount Shasta, got all kinds of messages as I climbed Mount Shasta. And then off to Sedona, because I knew I was supposed to go to my home base after, and I was just following the guidance that my soul gave me. And I did everything that made me giggle. I did everything that, and again, being smart, but adding value to my life, not contracting and shrinking and being in fear.
Right. And I think that's like whatever we're coming into contact with in the adventures that we're going on, no matter how small or large, I think that it's important to really always bring it back to that. Is how's it making you feel? and why are you feeling what you're feeling, and embrace the feeling, because that is what you're meant to learn at this point in time. And that's always the case, but right now it's especially important. Now, I will say astrologically, that for like international travel and things like that, it's going to be a little bit, I don't want to say risky, but it's going to be more difficult. Of course, like I think there's some countries that you can't even fly into right now.
Yeah, I have my nanny, his family's in Bulgaria, and it's just like practically impossible to even get there right now.
Yeah, yeah. Or some countries might make you, like I heard, I think it was in Norway or Netherlands. They're putting you up in a hotel for 14 days, and you're only allowed to go outside for like an hour a day, and they bring you food, and it's all controlled.
Yeah, I have a client that's moving to London, and she has to be under lock and key for 14 days.
Wow.
Yeah, not allowed to leave whatsoever.
Yeah. So on like on that note, like there's so much unpredictable stuff going on. It's just, it's like follow your like right now, our intuition is on fire.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's a lot of lessons that are coming with these intuitive nudges. So, you know, let go of any kind of outcome, but I definitely say like really, really tune in and feel what is flaming, feel what is expanding that fire within you of intuition, because I think each step you take in that, you're going to gain trust and confidence in your own heart, because this is really what's going on. Our hearts are expanding, and you know, it doesn't always, when your heart's expanding, sometimes it feels like a heartbreak because you're breaking it open, right? So
yeah, you know, well, it's uncharted turf, right?
Right, exactly. So a lot of this unknown, and there's a very massive fear of the unknown, you know, in the world, and everything right now is unknown. The only thing we do know is our heart. So depending on how connected you are to your heart, and the soul mapping, all right, is bringing those fragmented pieces of your soul back in to open up your heart. So literally think about this: the more that your heart, the more that you bring those things in, all right, the feelings of whatever was separated from you, they have to go through your five senses. So the pain you're going to feel, like the intensity, the sadness, whatever it was, it's going to go through you. And then that's going to open up your heart more. It's going to strengthen and solidify you. And it's going to bring in more and more, faster and bigger. And you know, our heart will continue to grow and get stronger. And we'll start to see it, but it comes in ways that we maybe don't expect or don't understand at first. And that is where faith and trust comes into play.
Well, and that's where you have to stay in a state of neutrality.
Right.
You know, and you know, I've really been finding that we also really need to keep your own health and wellness in alignment.
Absolutely.
That you really need to limit your exposure to those people that aren't in support of being in that state of neutrality.
Yeah, getting rid of toxic relationships is big time right now.
I mean, I am finding that with me taking a step back and not plugging into the world, like I tend to be a people pleaser, and I tend to be somebody who will take on other people's stuff and hold it with them. And I just aren't doing that anymore. And good so a lot of, I've got relationships, you know, friends and stuff like that, I just can't plug in the same way. And they're kind of pissed at me, and it's okay. Because to me, it's like, you're just going on your journey and I'm going on mine. And why does it make it bad?
Right. Absolutely.
And because neither way is wrong if you're following your soul, which then aids to better health and wellness.
Exactly. It's all interconnected.
And it really is that simple. And I just don't understand why we've just gotten so judgmental as a whole as to why that's all happening. Like we've all just gotten so like knotted up about it. And it's so
because
silly.
all this deep, dark stuff that most people don't want to feel is on the surface. So that
is so true.
It's like a hurricane in their consciousness, and they don't want to feel it. So they project and they lash out and they react to all these energies that they don't want to feel. And then everybody else feels the wrath. But there's so many people that they're like magnets, you know, like attracting this, like it's like a drone, almost like a zombie-like energy, to be honest.
You know, you see it the most these days when you talk about a mask.
Oh yeah.
Like that is like, it's like flies on shit.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and I certainly don't want to get into that debate, but it's just about being respectful of other people. And again, it goes back to, if we don't put out the thoughts, the words, and the feelings that are of the vibration that you want to attract more to yourself,
right,
disease is developed in your body.
Right. And also remember too, right now, that especially with Mars retrograde, okay, keep putting those out there, but you may not see the results right away because it's very internal right now. We're doing a lot of internal rewiring, and especially with the divine masculine, a lot of narcissistic behavior, a lot of like I win, you lose kind of energy is being called out. And there's a lot of, in this polarized, world that we live in now, a lot of that, it's everywhere. So it's all, with all that being called out, people, butts are getting hurt, like people are going to be, taking things in like weird ways. And this month in particular, the energy is very, it's static. It's sitting still. And when it's sitting still, it's at its strongest, right? When the energy is moving the fastest, we flow, right?
Can you explain something to everyone? It's interesting. There's a lot of things that are being posted out there about Mars being in retrograde. Can you go more into that for people? And then how does that, again, affect our physical bodies?
Absolutely. And I did make a whole video on this too, so you guys can check that out on my YouTube. But basically, Mars is the divine, represents the divine masculine, right? And the divine masculine is going, it's going out into the world. It's passion. It's structuring. It's making shit happen, right? It's how we penetrate reality. Now, when it goes retrograde, now suddenly it's like the outward force shuts down. Especially with Mars in its home sign of Aries. Mars. What do you mean
by that? Like outward force shuts down?
So the normal, typical outward drive to go out there and make things happen in the world, it turns in on itself. It goes within as opposed to going without. So it's a very opposite feel.
So is it forcing the divine feminine energy?
No, this has nothing to do with the divine feminine energy.
Got it. Okay.
This is just the divine. So you may in your mind, like you want to work out more, but you go to work out and you just don't have the drive. It's just like, my body is telling me it needs to relax, maybe do yoga, or I need to activate my parasympathetic nervous system, or it's looking for balance. All right.
Yep.
Or maybe you never work out, and now it's saying, okay, you need to go work out, stimulate your sympathetic nervous system, whatever you're out of balance from, as far as going out there and making something happen.
Yep.
And so in relationships, instead of like entertaining like arguments or debates, you may just be like, you know what, okay, whatever. It's going to be the opposite of whatever you normally do. So people that are usually passive aggressive or don't stick up for themselves, they're going to be speaking up for themselves, right? The people that are the opposite, that are going out there and making stuff happen, they're going to be like, I can't do it. I can't get out there, right? Which I like I told you earlier, like I'm trying to like go to the gym and make things. My body hurts. It's like my body's saying yoga, meditation. And I'm like, but I want to work out. I want to feel the pump. I want to feel, no, yoga, meditation. Like, okay, I got you.
I've kind of been in that mode for a while. It's funny because it's like the energy is so palpable that it's like, what I'm realizing is that the doing or the push, my body won't let me push, won't let me, like, that is not happening.
Right. Exactly.
Where I'm like, today I wound up just like going for a really, really long, 12,000 step walk.
There you go.
And it was just like, that's what I'm doing today, because pushing it anything past that, it's like my physical body's going, yeah, I don't think so.
Right. So this is where the acceptance is going to be really, really, really on the forefront of whatever it is that we do. Like acceptance for circumstances that maybe have not been going away. Like if you've been pushing in something that have just has equated to zero results, pushing or fighting, those things, like the momentum or the energy that you were putting into it, if it's not meant to be that way, you're going to lose all steam in it. So now what'll happen with a lot of people is that'll happen, and then they'll get depressed, and then they'll go into their bad habits, and then they'll just, you know, feel all these worthless and shame. That's all like that's the shadow side of Mars, right? When it can't do what it wants, when it doesn't get my way, then it sulks and it's self-loathing and it's poor me, and you know, like it's just like,
can you do that again?
So this is really where, like, you're gonna see if something ain't going your way, you need to take a step back, and you need to find a new way, which is probably going to be the opposite way that you did it before to generate energy. Right. So like for me right now, I'm realizing, okay, meditation, got to do it every day. And when I meditate, I know that that's going to generate energy in me. Now the energy is going to be different. It's almost going to be like, it just brings you back to like level. It's not going to be driven. It's not going to,
back to a state of neutrality. Right. And observing.
Exactly. But so this is a big lesson in learning how to utilize the divine feminine. Okay.
Because you're allowing, receiving.
Yes, exactly. So through the energy,
which actually then in turn alkalines your body. So then disease can't fully develop in an alkaline body.
Exactly. So really,
I'm figuring this out.
Yeah, man. Yes, you are. So whatever it is that you're going through in your life right now, if something is just exhausting you, if you're fighting and it's just not going anywhere, take a step back. And really, this is more about not trying to do something to change it. This is more about just stop doing what it is that you're doing that's creating that feeling.
Right.
And then you might be like, okay, I'm stopped doing it. Now what do I do?
Yeah, well, and we just need to understand that it just doesn't feel good to move forward in whatever that is, and just recognize that and just be like, okay.
Say it out of my peeps.
Hey, peeps. Ask your peeps if they have any questions.
You guys have any questions, peeps? Oh, 𝐾𝐮𝐿, I know you do. Oh, yeah.
Well, and so many of us, what we need to realize that, because I always say we either work it out or we act it out, and we do it through our health or through our money and our relationships for that matter. Right. And so yours may not be showing up in your physical health, but it might be in your financial health or your relationship health. So I think it's really important just to recognize that, you know, like I was talking to somebody today about their financials, and I was saying about how, you know, you've done a great job in getting out of the credit card debt, but now you just create all this debt with the IRS. So you really didn't move anywhere. You didn't really move from this place to this place. You actually just stayed in place. And so it's about the fact of watch if you're just transposing it from one area of your life to another, and you're really not actually dealing with what actually needs to elevate to the next level of your soul's map.
And that may happen for like up until about the second or third week of October. It's sort of like we're going deep into the muck of all the stuff that's been our deepest blockages, really. But then about second or third week in October, that's when things are going to start to, like, aha moments, epiphanies, and starting to figure out. That's when the stuff's going to start to turn around. And, you know, it's not really be until December when we really get like the big blast through. But, you know, at least this is going to be a massive reset for us to be ready to shift into this new age. What do I want you to bring back for me from overseas? Surprise me. That was one of the questions I got from Poetic. She's in my community. Represent opportunity community. Shout out.
Why don't you tell everybody about your opportunity community?
Yeah, so we have this awesome community where we meet up every week. And it's based on a 4-week transformational protocol that I created, that we get what I call an accountability buddy. And we have this structure that we create to identify our blockages and things that we want. And, you know, our accountability buddy is there to kind of call us out on our shenanigans. If we're not being, you know, if we're doing things that aren't for our highest and best good, they call us out, you know, and then we call them out, and we help each other grow. And each week, each week has to be done for 7 consecutive days, and then we graduate or move on to the next week. And when we meet up, we all talk about what we have going on. And it's so interesting to see that, I always go over about the energy a little bit, and I do some channeling, but there's some really great healers and very powerful people that have made so many breakthroughs and so many like aha moments going through this and transforming their lives, creating businesses and doing a really powerful work. So I made a lot of really great friends all around the world. And, I love my community, and it's about helping out, networking, connecting people with other people, and, just making shit happen.
So how do people find you to do that opportunity community if they're drawn?
Well, you can go to my website, spiritualbodybuilder.com, and literally just go to community. It's right there on the front page, and sign up. It's too easy.
Well, and I think it's really important for during times like this, whatever you're drawn to or whoever you're drawn to find systems and groups and, people that can help support you to this next right step for you on your journey.
Yeah.
And just know that something that maybe didn't work for you before is something that can work for you now in moving forward to wherever it is that you want to be. Because again, none of it's right or wrong. It's just about what serves you today. Right. And, that's why I've created this Awaken series to where, we talk about awakening your health on Monday nights, and tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. we're talking about awakening your spirit and doing an energy session with one of my dudes in Sedona.
Oh yeah, I love it.
I'm going to start October 7th with awakening your work life, because there's so many people that are doing work in the world that they really just don't like to do anymore because it's not making them giggle anymore, and it's time to shift. And then on Thursdays, we're doing Awaken Your Relationships. I work with a woman who is a narcissist expert. She knows how to help people navigate through the narcissists in your life. And this is her niche in the marketplace, and she's super helpful. So whether it's the opportunity community or join me on the Awakening series, you can reach me on Juliemurphy.com. Nam and I are here to help you guys, to help you in this next phase of where it is that you need to go and want to go. And so it's good stuff.
Beautiful stuff. And Julie, I just want to say, you and I have been doing this now for what, 6-7 months? And
since February.
February.
7 months.
Yeah. So you've been a huge blessing in my life. And
you as well, my friend.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
You're like, whenever I'm having one of those questioning my life, jumping off the cliff moments, then I call Julie up and we talk, and she just always knows the right thing to say to help me understand what I'm feeling. She's very intuitive. She really is good at just helping me get back on track energetically and emotionally. And I'm so grateful for your friendship.
And I am grateful for yours too, my friend.
Oh, thank you.
I have a thinner face because you really helped me address all my shit.
Get it. And I have better finances because of you.
Yay! That's what it's all about.
Exactly.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining us this week. And we will see you next Monday, 7 p.m. Central and 5 p.m. Pacific.
Boom. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.